You ever seen someone call 911 over a Wi-Fi password? That's how it started. With a man standing on his porch, one hand holding a phone, the other resting on his hip as he watched the blinking lights of a dusty old router. To him, it was just routine. To his neighbor across the street, it looked like a threat. And within minutes, sirens were on their way. What none of them knew was that the real danger, it wasn't outside. It wasn't a man with a phone. It was already inside someone's home, hiding behind trust, screens, and a smile. Because sometimes the people you fear are the ones trying to protect you. And sometimes the ones you trust most are the ones watching when you think you're alone. Thank you for being here. Sometimes, the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now let's take a closer look at what really happened. Elliot Wade wasn't the kind of man people talked about much. He worked from home, paid his taxes, waved when someone waved first. And that was about it. His yard was always neat. Not magazine perfect, but respectful. His gutters didn't sag, his porch light worked, and his mailbox had his name printed in quiet. Respectable lettering E. Wade 231 Lakewood Drive. He liked it that way, invisible. Lakewood Drive was the kind of suburban cul-de-sac where people still left Christmas lights up until March, and potlucks were hosted in 3 sizes: small, medium, and Patricia Harlow's house. Patricia was the neighborhood's unofficial manager. She organized block parties, delivered newsletters, and kept a mental record of whose recycling bins weren't sorted properly. Her opinions were polite, but her glances weren't. Elliot had lived in the brick house at the end of the street for 3 years. And in all that time, he and Patricia had exchanged fewer than a dozen words. But that was enough for her to form a conclusion. He kept to himself. Too much. And in her mind, that meant he had something to hide. It all began on a Thursday, early spring. A soft breeze blew over cracked sidewalks. The kind of day where the trees looked ready to bloom, but hadn't made up their minds yet. Elliot had just wrapped up a long morning of coding work. He poured himself a cup of coffee and noticed the Wi-Fi was dragging, buffering. Again. Zoom calls had frozen twice that week. Spotify was skipping. At first, he'd chalked it up to bad service, but now, something didn't feel right. He sat down at the kitchen table and opened his router settings. He wasn't a tech wizard, but he knew enough to spot when something didn't belong. And there it was. A device connected to his network, labeled clearly, intentionally Lakewood GWIST-01. He didn't own a guest device. He never gave out his Wii. He lived alone. No kids. No smart fridge. So what was this? Elliot narrowed his eyes, hovered over the device name, and removed it from the list. Then, with a breath, he reset his password completely. Paranoid. Maybe. But something told him this wasn't just a neighbor borrowing bandwidth. He stepped out to the driveway, holding his phone higher for a better signal. The sky was clean, quiet. He stood near the porch light, typing in the new password. Tight security. No more freeloaders. From her kitchen window, Patricia Harlow watched. She saw Elliot standing there, staring down at his phone, his fingers tapping rapidly, like he was hiding something. To her, it didn't look like routine tech maintenance. It looked like covered activity. She'd never liked how he kept his blinds closed, or how he didn't RSVP to neighborhood events. And now, seeing him outside, tapping on his phone like a man cracking codes, well, it all felt off. To her, it wasn't just unusual. It was suspicious. Patricia didn't hesitate. She reached for her phone, her thumb hovering for only a second before pressing call. A 911.
Yes.
I'd like to report something unusual. My neighbor is outside doing something with his phone. He's acting strange. The dispatcher asked questions. Patricia had no real answers, just that gut feeling. The operator asked, "Is he threatening anyone?" "No, but I think something's wrong." By the time she hung up, the patrol car was already en route. And Elliot, he had no idea that updating his Wi-Fi password had just summoned 2 armed officers to his front door. The first thing Elliot noticed was the siren. Low, distant, like a slow-moving threat. He didn't think much of it. Not until the cruiser turned onto Lakewood Drive and stopped in front of his house. Two officers stepped out, one tall, sharp-jawed and stiff-backed Detective Aaron Navarro, the other more compact, with a steady gaze and presence that said she missed nothing. Officer Jenna Rowe. Elliot blinked. Still holding his phone. Still standing on his own property. No laws broken. But he knew how these things could go, especially when you're misunderstood. He lowered his phone and raised one hand slightly open. Not surrender, just peace. Navarro's hand hovered near his belt, not on his gun, but not far. Sir, he called out, voice neutral but firm. We received a report about suspicious activity. You mind telling us what you're doing? Elliot raised an eyebrow. I'm changing my Wi-Fi password. He held up his phone. Router settings. Someone's been using my network. Navarro gave Officer Rowe a glance. She didn't speak, just watched. Do you live here? He asked. Elliot exhaled a quiet laugh. His car was in the driveway. His name was on the mailbox. Yeah, been here 3 years. Then came the voice. I told you. It sliced through the air like static. Patricia Harlow stood on her porch now, arms folded tightly, the phone still clutched in one hand like a shield. He's always out there doing something. Looking at his phone, watching people, standing in that same spot like he's, I don't know, tracking us. Elliot turned toward her, disbelief crawling up his spine. I was checking my router. Someone's been connected to it that doesn't belong. She crossed her arms tighter. Oh, sure. And I'm supposed to believe that. Navarro shifted. Ma'am, do you have any evidence that Mr. Wade has done something illegal? Patricia faltered. I don't know. I have a bad feeling. The detective's patience wore thin. He turned back to Elliot. Sir, would you mind showing us your network settings? Just to clear this up. Elliot clenched his jaw. He didn't owe them that. But refusing wouldn't help. And he could feel the whole block watching now. Curtains moved. Heads peeked out. He tapped his screen. Fine. Here. He handed the phone to Rowe. She squinted at the list of connected devices. Then she stopped. Her eyes narrowed. Lakewood Guesto 1. That's not yours. No. Elliot said. And it's not just stealing bandwidth. Look at the logs. It's been online nonstop, like someone's keeping it connected for a reason. Navarro stepped closer, voice quieter now. Watching. Elliot nodded. Exactly. Watching. Silence fell heavy over the lawn. Patricia shifted uncomfortably on her porch. Wait, what do you mean watching? Elliot turned to her. Not with anger, but with clarity. I mean someone has been spying. Through my own home security system. Now her arms dropped. What? Rowe's voice cut in sharp. Let's take this inside. I want to see everything. Elliot didn't hesitate. He motioned them in. Patricia stood frozen, then slowly followed. Something in her gut, the same gut that had screamed, danger, now told her she'd been staring at the wrong person all along. Inside, Elliot placed his phone on the dining table and mirrored the screen to his laptop. One by one, device logs appeared. Network names. Connection points. See that one? He said, pointing to the screen. Still active. Still online and here. He opened the router activity log, then paused. His face went pale. What is it? Navarro asked. Elliot swallowed. It's been accessing camera feeds, Patricia gasped. Camera feeds? What camera feeds? Elliot didn't answer right away. He turned the screen around. Mine. My home security cameras. Someone's been logging in, watching me live. Rowe leaned in. You're saying your security system was hacked? Yes, and it gets worse. He scrolled again. Multiple IPs. Some are mine. Others, they're from other homes. He looked up. This isn't just about me. Navarro stiffened. You mean? Or Elliot nodded. Someone is watching this entire neighborhood. Patricia's hand went to her mouth. No. That can't be right. You sure about that? Elliot said. He clicked one more log. A live camera feed appeared. Dim hallway, faded wallpaper. A staircase. Then, a bedroom. Patricia's breath caught. That's my house. Navarro's tone darkened. Whoever set this up, they knew exactly what they were doing. Rowe muttered. This isn't just creepy. It's criminal. That's unlawful surveillance. Elliot was already working. I'm trying to trace the signal. I'm not a hacker, but I know enough. He pulled up the IP routing table. His fingers slowed. No way. It's not going to a server out of state. It's here. He spun the screen. It's being sent to a house just a few doors down. Navarro's voice was steel. Can you isolate the address? Elliot nodded. A few clicks, cross-referencing timestamps and signal strength. Then he stopped. Eyes wide. Face gone blank. No. Patricia whispered, already knowing. That's, Elliot cut in, voice cold now. That's Brandon's house. Brandon Harlow. Patricia's nephew. 22. Quiet. Lived with her since last summer. Always on his computer. Ro whispered, well, that changes everything. Patricia looked like she might crumble. He couldn't. Navarro was already moving. Where is he? 8 home, she said faintly. Upstairs. I'll take you. She added. Elliot stepped forward. I'm coming. Navarro didn't even look back. No, you stay. Let us handle this. Elliot didn't fight it. He just stared out the window. The same street he'd walked every morning. The neighbors he nodded to. The porch where a woman had called the police on him. Now walking into her house, chasing the shadow behind her own front door. The worst part. He saw it coming. Patricia's feet felt heavier with every step. She led Navarro and rode down the street to her own home, the same street she once proudly patrolled like a neighborhood guardian. But now, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd been guarding the wrong gate. The front door creaked open. Brandon, she called, her voice thinner than she meant it to be. You up there, honey? No answer. Navarro didn't wait. He exchanged a glance with Ro and headed straight for the staircase. We're going up. Patricia didn't argue. She just stood in the foyer, arms crossed, holding herself like a house might collapse around her if she let go. Upstairs, the hallway was silent. Ro approached the bedroom door slowly. She knocked once. Brandon Foster. This is the police. We need to speak with you. Open the door. Silence. Then a slow creak. The knob turned. The door opened just enough to show a young man standing inside. Late 20s. Hooded sweatshirt. Thin. Pale. Eyes darting from officer to aunt. He looked like a boy caught between two truths. What's going on? He asked, voice tight. Navarro didn't blink. We believe you've been accessing private security cameras throughout the neighborhood. Is that correct? Brandon blinked. Swallowed. What? No. That's ridiculous. Ro cut in, her tone sharpened. Mind if we check your laptop? Brandon hesitated. You don't have a warrant. Navarro took a step forward. We can get one. Or you can talk now. Your choice. Brandon's mask cracked. He exhaled, long and shaking. I wasn't trying to do anything wrong. I swear. It started as a joke. Patricia's voice broke. Brandon, what did you do? He looked at her. Really looked, for the first time that day. I wanted to see if I could get into someone's wheat. That's all. Just as a prank. I didn't think it would work. Navarro's tone cut in. But it did work. And instead of stopping, you started watching. Didn't you? Brandon didn't answer. Ro stepped closer. How many homes, Brandon? How many people have you watched? A beat. Thin, I don't know, he whispered. Patricia's knees gave slightly. She grabbed the doorframe for balance. My God. Brandon looked down at his hands. I wasn't hurting anyone. I got curious. Navarro had heard enough. Brandon Foster, you are under arrest for unauthorized network access and unlawful surveillance. A Rose stepped in and pulled the cuffs from her belt. No, wait. Brandon stammered. Please. Aunt Pat. I didn't mean. But it was too late. Patricia couldn't even look at him. She turned away, hand to her mouth as tears stung her eyes. Outside, Elliot watched from the sidewalk. He didn't gloat, didn't smile. He just stood still as the front door opened and Brandon was let out, wrists bound in steel, eyes low. Navarro met Elliot's gaze. You were right, he said quietly. If you hadn't caught this, we might have never known. Elliot didn't answer at first. He looked past the detective, past the cuffs and the cruiser to Patricia. She stood in the middle of her lawn, pale and breathless. Then he spoke. You know what's crazy, he said, calm but cutting. I was out here, minding my own business, changing my Wi-Fi password, And I was the one who had the cops called on me. Patricia flinched. She had no defense, there was none. I was wrong, she murmured. I made an assumption. A bad one. It was completely unfair. Elliot let the words hang, then turned toward his door. I don't need an apology, he said over his shoulder. Just do better. And with that, he went inside. Navarro and Rowe loaded Brandon into the cruiser. Patricia didn't follow. She just stood there alone, in the street, surrounded by quiet houses, blooming trees, and the ghosts of assumptions that had felt so real until they shattered. She thought she was protecting her neighborhood, but the threat had been inside her own home the entire time. It's strange how quickly we draw lines. In our neighborhoods, our minds, our hearts. Elliot Wade was never a threat. He was just a man trying to fix his Wi-Fi. A man who valued quiet mornings, reliable connections, and a bit of privacy. But someone saw him and didn't see him. They saw a shadow, a stranger, someone who didn't wave enough, didn't barbecue, didn't fit. And in that gap, they filled in the rest. Patricia Harlow stood outside her house long after the cruiser disappeared. She didn't go inside. Couldn't. The silence was too thick. The boy she helped raise, who she cooked for, drove to class, told bedtime stories to when he first moved in, had been spying on their neighbors. Honor. She kept asking herself the same question, how did I miss it? But the harder question was why she assumed the man across the street was the problem, instead of turning her head slightly, just a few feet, and looking inward. Some mistakes come with a cost, a broken window, a wrong delivery. Others, they come with a name, a face, a reputation dragged through the mud because someone felt off, without asking why. Elliot hadn't asked for an apology. He didn't need one, because he understood something most people don't. That silence doesn't mean guilt. That privacy isn't a crime. And that being different doesn't make you dangerous. Later that week, a new sign appeared in Elliot's yard. It wasn't flashy, just white letters on black wood. Community is earned, not assumed. Nobody asked him what it meant, but a few folks slowed their walks when passing his house. Some waved, some paused. Patricia, she walked by once, didn't say anything, but this time she looked him in the eye and he nodded. Just once, and somehow that was enough. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in a quiet neighborhood isn't a locked door or a strange man with a phone. It's the story we tell ourselves about who belongs and who doesn't. Elliot Wade didn't need forgiveness. He wasn't asking to be liked. He just wanted to be seen as what he was. A neighbor. A man. A human being. But that's the thing about assumptions. They don't need evidence. Just a hunch. Just a little fear. Just enough silence to fill with judgment. And in that silence, we can hurt people. Good people. If you've ever looked at someone and thought, they don't fit in, maybe take a breath. Ask yourself, do I really know who they are or just who I think they are? Because the truth, it's quieter than suspicion, and it's almost always closer than we think. If this story made you pause, let it guide you. Don't assume. Don't judge. Listen. Observe. And most of all, do better. Thank you for listening. If this story stirred something in you, share it. You never know who might need this reminder today. And if you'd like to hear more quiet, powerful stories just like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe, leave a comment, and tap the bell. Because sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. And stories like this, they're worth remembering.